What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are well. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Again, hope you guys are doing well in this month of July that we're in. Training camp is at the end of the month, and I hope you guys are enjoying this nice hot weather. I'm currently not in the States right now, but I was able to get my hands, thank you VPNs, on Hard Knocks. And it was very interesting, episode 1, and I'm going to take a little bit of time in this video to kind of dive into the main subjects, the main key cogs of what made Hard Knocks episode 1 very interesting. So let's get into it. So we're going to talk about Saquon Barkley first, and that seemed to be the main core of the episode, right? It seemed like it was teased in the trailer, Joe Shane telling Saquon this, that, and the other thing. And, that part really wasn't revealed, but it seemed like Joe Shane had a very detailed, I would say, not too detailed, but he had a plan just in case the New York Giants were not able to re-sign Saquon Barkley. And it seemed like Joe Shane had already gotten his mindset, right? He didn't want to sign him to this big deal, which I don't blame him for. And then he said to his group of scouts, in the room was Kevin Abrams, Tim McDonald, Chris Rossetti, who had a lot of screen time and seems to be involved a lot. I think that was a Joe Shane hire, which is a good thing. Let's see, Kevin Abrams, Chris Rossetti, Tim McDonald, Brendan Brown, I believe, was also in the room. So there was a couple of guys gathered, and he's like, well, I don't think signing and trading Saquon is going to work. Now, he did underestimate the fact that Saquon would get a big deal. Obviously, he got a big deal over in Philly, but still, I think it was the right decision. And when I'm talking about a detailed plan, he was talking about different backs. We actually saw a little bit of who they were looking into on the free agent market. Now, he did mention names just sporadically: Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, this, that, and the third. Chris Rossetti, again, had a huge role when it came to that stuff. Rossetti really didn't like Josh Jacobs because of the year he had last year, which, he was late on the field because of all of the money stuff, and obviously that affected his production. And then you have Austin Eckler, who was just a name, but they went into Zach Moss. They went into Tony Pollard. They went into DeAndre Swift. And, of course, they went into Devin Singletary, who the New York Giants ended up signing. So they had a detailed plan. Is it going to work out? We don't know, right? They graded Zach Moss as a good pass protector, not a home run hitter, a solid runner, and a pass catcher. They graded Tony Pollard as a 3-down non-power back and a decisive back at that. Singletary, we already know. And DeAndre Swift makes up things you lose with Saquon, especially in the passing game, and is just a shifty runner. So he was very reluctant to trade Saquon because, he said, I think it was him or Brendan Brown said, is it worth trading him for a 5th-round pick and then eating like $3-4 million in dead cap? Because there's going to be something that, you have to pay. So he was obviously very open to all those backs, and one of the main quotes of the episode was when Tim McDonald, John Mara's nephew, turns around and said, okay, well, you're losing all your touchdowns. You're losing all your offensive production. He's the main offensive weapon. What's our identity going to be? So Joe Shane was turning around basically saying, look, it's Daniel's year. It's the year of Daniel. We got to protect him. He's not a $40 million quarterback that hands off to a $12 million running back. That's not his job. His job is to be the main leader of the offense since it's been so dog shit. And also something I find interesting is one of the clips we were watching, I would say at the end of the Hard Knocks episode, because they were going through the Senior Bowl, they were going through the East-West Shrine Bowl, is that he was talking with Frank Gore and some agent. And Frank Gore goes, you really believe that stuff about 27-plus-year-old running backs and the wear and tear, that they get older and you guys really look at that stuff? He goes, well, yeah, the data says that. So that pretty much says that about episode 1. about Saquon. Now, you want to look into the Daniel Jones stuff. Apologies, there are jet skis and different planes around me. Nonetheless, we go into Daniel Jones, and it seemed like it was a very defending standpoint of Daniel Jones. Now, you did see him rehab, okay. To me, and listen, I wish no injury on Daniel despite my views of him as a quarterback, but I think that's a little filler content, but a lot of people like to see the rehab stuff. It was very defended of Daniel Jones. Now, it's a little two-sided, and I'll get into that in a second. A lot of quotes. We have to protect ourselves. Didn't have much of a chance with this O-line. Patrick Mahomes couldn't fucking win with this. Joe Schoen was very evident about that. And I'll say this as well. You did hear in the episode a soundbite of Greg Giannotti saying, oh, the rebuild, it's 2 years into the regime. I still don't think it's a rebuild because you hear Joe Schoen saying the entire episode, we need to fucking win. And that's true. The Giants do need to fucking win. But whether this, set of moves is going to work out for them is a whole, it has yet to be determined what it's going to look like, what the result's going to be. And he also brings up that he felt the O-line was upgrade in 2023, but obviously the results were not there. So then he has to go out and he says, again, we have to protect ourselves, which, again, why I say it's two-sided is because he was the guy who brought in that O-line. He was the guy who, sat down and made sure, okay, this guy's going to start or we're going to put this guy in. 2023 was his roster. Okay, it's not 2022 where, it's half of Gettleman. 2023, 2024, those moves were controlled by Joe Schoen and the rest of the front office. And he also brought up the fact that they had 3 fucking practice squad guys starting against Miami Dolphins. So, it's very evident he knew what was going on and they're giving Daniel a chance. And he says the plan all along was to give him a couple of years to figure out if he's our guy or find somebody else. So they are all in on the Daniel Jones train. Now, we're going to go into the defense a little bit. And before they really brought Shane Bowen along in terms of the part of the episode, they started talking about defensive linemen to place next to Dexter Lawrence, which I find pretty interesting because the New York Giants really didn't address that this offseason. Now, it would be substituted, I guess, by the move for Brian Burns, but they were looking at different guys. Chris Jones, who they eventually figured out is not going to fit their system because of the cap ramifications. They talked about Brian Burns a little bit. They thought that he would be gone for 2 1s or at least a 1 because they turned down 2 1s the year prior. And they talked about Christian Wilkins, who is Dexter Lawrence's best friend from Clemson. So they had all the options, and Rossetti said, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Chris Wilkins is a pass rusher, or at least a difference maker on 3rd down. So I find that very interesting. I'm not saying it's wrong, all right? I'm not really saying it's wrong, to be honest with you, because he hasn't really shown that through his career. This year in Miami was pretty much his showcase, right? Because he had a contract year. So anyway, you look at Shane Bowen coming in, and we saw a little bit of what he thinks the scheme is going to look like, and he showed it to Brian Dable, he showed it to Joe Schoen, so they could get their hands on players that could fit the scheme. Dable, one of the things that's very remarkable about this episode, he says, after he tells Joe Schoen, look, we're going to hire Shane Bowen, he goes, blah, 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 meaning all the stats. And he goes, can you get our fucking run defense to look like this, please? That's one of the concerns, and that's one of the concerns a lot of Giant fans had when Wink Martindale left is, hey, our run defense needs to be a lot better than it is. So Shane Bowen does bring good run defense, just the pass defense is a little flawed. Now, whether that's talent or not, that's a different story. We will debate that for another day. What he said, Shane Bowen, one of the first things he said in that meeting, the gigantic meeting he had with the scouts and Brian Dable, is our base defense is going to be 3 D linemen, 2 edges, 2 inside backs, and 4 defensive backs. And he said the smartest spots and the bulk of the load will go to the inside linebackers. Now, it is common in NFL defenses, but sometimes, you'll have this guy carrying the load with the C on his helmet and the microphone or the headset in his head, however you do that, because they're the captain. We'll see what happens this year on the football field. Probably Bobby Okereke carrying that same role. Now, I found this very interesting, right? When they were doing actually two things, right? So he wants 4 elite pass rushers. You're probably not going to get 4 elite pass rushers. But nonetheless, right? He sits there and talks about his scheme, and Brian Dable goes and says, okay, how does Isaiah Simmons fit this defense, and does he fit this defense? So the New York Giants must have really liked Isaiah Simmons, and this probably was in January, February. They must have really liked Isaiah Simmons. I mean, he wasn't signed till, I want to say, late March, April? So very interesting. Very interesting to me that they wanted Isaiah Simmons back so bad, because I guess he's a quality player. And he did reveal what he would be on defense. He'd be a first, second down slot corner, and a third down penetrator. So third down penetrator, I would guess, is penetrating the offensive line. Is he going to be off the edge? Is he going to be just through the middle? It's going to be very interesting to see. But first, second down nickel cornerback. I mean, you did draft Andrew Phillips. You re-signed Darnay Holmes. So it's going to be interesting to see what that slot corner looks like and why the bulk on the slot. But nonetheless, he also talked about before the Brian Burns thing, basically, do you want an edge or do you want a defensive lineman? Is Boogie Basham or Ryder Anderson, are they going to fit one of those interior defensive line roles? Now, Boogie Basham, probably not, but Ryder Anderson because of the length, and, he's obviously done some sort of scouting before coming to the New York Giants. And I always say, look, Ryder Anderson, if you give him a good chance, he'll play solid, right? If, he's next to Dex, and you have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau on the edge sides, he can have solid production. I'm not saying he's going to be the great, but I think he is going to be better than what a lot of these other defensive linemen who are competing for roster spots are going to give you. This is my personal opinion. But nonetheless, that is the recap / my thoughts on the first episode of Giants Hard Knocks. We'll have one next week and the weeks after. Got a lot of good stuff coming up for you guys. We're looking to get to 2,100 subscribers. Again, thank you guys for tuning into the Roster Bubble series. Work hard on those and, getting the background of these players. But nonetheless, peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool. And most of all, enjoy the warm weather while you have it.